You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast. Hey, my favorite topic, salespreneurs. We got John Gaffigan, Jim Gaffigan's distant cousin, on today. John is a podcast listener. He's been in touch with me over several years, been a listener. I think he's been listening 5 years. We met up for breakfast a couple of weeks ago. I go, oh man, I got to get you on the show. I want you to share your story. Typical, sales guy, now started his own company, helping other companies learn how to sell their products into new market spaces. Really tough. But what he's done is pretty much what I've been talking about on the podcast, being company independent. Why is this so important? Because in today's world, companies, they come and they go, no matter how good they are. None of them have pensions anymore. Remember that? Our parents got pensions. We didn't get, there's no company has a pension anymore. It's insane. We all have to save our own money, and we have to become salespreneurs. We can still work for a company. We still be company people, 100% gung-ho for it, but we've also got to understand that the world is changing so fast that we have to adapt. Let's get into it. I want to make sure you're checking out the show notes. It's right attached to the to the podcast. Make sure you're checking out Co-Video. Co-Video is the fastest, easiest way to send a video email. And everybody I'm talking to who uses video email, they get opened and they get listened to. It's incredibly powerful. Make sure you're checking that out. I'll sum up the episode at the very end. I know somebody said, Brian, you got to sum up the episode at the end. I can't remember all these 5 things you're telling me about. So I'll do that for you. Let's get in. Let's get John on the show.
I am.
Here we go. Hey, John, thanks for joining us today. As a way of getting started, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Brian, I'm glad to be on your podcast. I am a sales professional for the past 30 years, dealing with a lot of high-tech products. I care about the Capitals for hockey, father of an 18 and 17-year-old, live in Northern Virginia, and I'm delighted to see that we're getting a little break from that Arctic air we've had the last week.
Yeah. So what are you doing now?
Well, I became an independent outsourced VP of sales or sales director consultant back in August of 2014. That was created because I was the head of North American sales for a company out of Florida called Vario. And our parent at Vario, NTT, elected to shut down the line of business I was supporting. And after being subject to a broad staff layoff of the entire sales team, I really thought about what do I want to create for myself now as a newfound free agent. And I elected to go down a path within this emerging gig economy to cobble together different companies that are synergistic and that really appeal to me.
Now, this kind of applies a lot to what I call, a salespreneur, but that model is more like when you work for a company as opposed to many companies. Well, what made you take this route? Were you tired of corporate America or?
Well, I was back in August 2014, still looking to do a conventional W-2, single bag carrying job. But in the back of my mind, I always thought, what if I could do something where I could create and I could pull together things that appealed to me? And we're living in a society, and this is not like one of these Fiverr things where you're trying to do these spot little engagements for literally $5. But this is for really to help to transform companies in a given vertical that you care about. And for me, when I did some self-reflection, I thought about, the green tech industry, offerings that make for a better to be than the given as is. So that's what I went out to go create, manually bootstrap to get clients that are in that space that I can help.
Yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity out there for people like this. And I'm coming out with something in the spring to kind of help people who either want to work at home or want to work, less than full time, but still want to make great money and like to sell. So I think today we have so many opportunities. But I got a lot of people, and we've talked a little bit about this, who I outsource, most of my work to. And you got the labor arbitrage where, there are people that work for very little and are happy to do so. But but I think it's also on the high end, where you get these companies that either can't afford or don't want to take the risk on taking a W-2 executive in and just want somebody to kind of guide them through that market entry point.
Yeah, and I think that's a good starting point to talk about who this conversation today is relevant for. I mean, first and foremost, for small to medium businesses, ones that are leery about bringing on the W-2s, they want to be able to get actionable outcomes within a 90 or 120 day period. And people that have become practiced in executive senior level sales can do just that. So both parties can kind of do a trial run, try before you buy. I'm not saying that I'm ever opposed to being a W-2 again, but I love the flexibility of being able to help companies transform themselves. And this could be on any level. This could be new product offerings, regional campaigns, target vertical campaigns. In lieu of them, you can't go out to the outsourced Indian or overseas agents to do that, but you can get people that can help them by understanding exactly what they're bringing to bear and then applying a toolkit of skills that you've pulled together over the years to make an impact for them.
And I think it's a good lesson for people that are even early in their career, where you shouldn't be really thinking that you can spend 20, 30 years at a company. Those days are long gone. And if you're not thinking like an entrepreneur, really from day one, and I hear this all the time. It's like, oh, I've got LinkedIn. I go, do you have your own CRM? No. Okay. You know what happens the day they lay you off? What? They take your PC and they scrape it remotely, and all that data that you entered for the last 4 years is gone.
Right.
Your whole network, a lot of all that byproducts, and now you're starting over again.
Yeah, and on one of your prior podcasts, you've talked about the virtues of Pipedrive, and I'm a big advocate of that too, and I use that myself personally.
Yeah. Have you seen the new feature of Smart Contacts?
There's a lot of new features they're bringing out. I mean, I don't want to digress and make this be a shameless Pipedrive plug, but I love what they do for a very modest and fair amount of money. You get an awful lot of value from that.
Yeah, the Smart Contacts thing, it's like literally having like a research agent in the CRM. You just hit the button and it fills out all the information about the company and the person. Yeah, I didn't mean to go off either, but I was like so excited because I've been talking to them about this capability that all of a sudden now you don't have to enter all this data. But I mean, just having your tool set, because now it's yours, your login, and it's on the internet and it's not dependent on that company. And everyone kind of thinks, well, it's, it saves me $25 a month. But it's like, you got to understand that you are, John Inc. now. You're Brian Inc. And you've got to start thinking that way. You're partnering with these companies, but you can't sell your soul to the companies because the economics and the environment is changing so much today. Give us a sense of how fast these markets and companies come about.
Well, I mean, I think what might be instructive is for me to kind of walk through the actionable steps that I did in somewhat degree of chronological order. First of all, whether you are in a job that you are not really feeling fulfilled or whether you've been laid off, give yourself time to think about what you're truly passionate about. I believe fervently that it's not work if what you do is what you love. And I know that you've said this at multiple podcasts. So find something that you truly are passionate about because it's going to be visualized by the clients that you're talking with. They will absolutely see that. And so take the time to find what inspires you. Look at a lot of LinkedIn profiles in the target market that you want to be in. And it doesn't have to be where you are now because we're very malleable today. People reinvent themselves multiple times. And it's actually healthy, I think, for the brain. I mean, I was in telecom for like 25 years. And if you can give a grade A performance hungover at 2 a.m, you should do something else because, you're not learning, you're not expanding your capacity. But so look at the people that you would like to emulate, the industries you want to be in. And there's so many sources, that. You can look in Entrepreneur, Forbes, Fortune, specialty mags, trade associations, blogs, forums. All these things give you an abundance of research to get the data that you need to find out what would appeal to you. I think that then you change your LinkedIn profile And only when you have everything spit polished just the way you want, you put broadcast out. So now all the people are seeing what you're doing. And that's kind of the first key step. Simultaneously with that, you need to have a proper consulting agreement. And I paid my own personal lawyer a goodly sum to come up with one, because by and large, 90% of the consulting agreements are so heavily slanted to the company. And really, there's two parties here. The company and consultant have to be in equal measure. And if you really look at it objectively, it makes the best sense. So I have an agreement, and I'm happy to share with your listeners how I came about doing that. And maybe this is something that will be of value for them. I've read it through my lawyer at certainly a heavily reduced fee, so I can maintain the ethics and integrity of the intellectual property. But it's really important that you have that locked down. Then start calling CEOs at the target groups that you would like, and engage them as we're doing here now. Say, I've spent time researching your offering. It appeals to me. Can you tell me if you're meeting your sales expectations, or are there ways that you would like to drive new products, new verticals, new campaigns into regions? And this, by the way, Brian, doesn't apply just for sales. I mean, this really can apply to anybody. If they're an engineer, or if they're a researcher, or if they're an analyst, this applies broadly, this salespreneur thing that we're talking about, or the gig economy, to all facets of work. I mean, we're talking about sales because that's what you and I do, but it applies broadly to everything. And for me, I look for products that have a better to be than the as is. So that's a very broad spectrum. And I generally am applying that to green tech, because that just really appeals to me, to be more conserving of our resources. And so those are the companies. I do have a security play in there. It goes back to some of my old security days. But by and large, I consult for firms that are offering green technology, sustainability, renewables, circular economy type things. Once you get your CEOs to express some interest, you have to come up with agreeable terms that match for both of them. And then ideally what you do, and this is the real icing on the cake, you want to deal with companies that are in the same pool but different swim lanes. So when you cultivate a prospect or a client, you might be able to apply that beneficially for two or three of the clients that you're supporting, your clients, for selling services to your prospects, to your network.
And so, how did you go about finding those accounts?
It took a little while to. First of all, you have to build, and I think over the past couple of years, I've built up maybe a couple thousand that are really germane to this space. So you have to be very active. I mean, go to the meetups that are pertain to what you want to do, whether it's your existing business or one that you're moving into. You need to become a thought leader. Get involved with trade groups. For example, one that I'm involved with is called Leaders in Energy, and they're represented in 103 countries, 2,900 members, and you have to build value. And this applies to anything in life. But as you build value, the executive director asked me if I would assist her in more of a leadership role. So I'm running member services and sponsorship for Leaders in Energy, and it gives me visibility to fellow executives in all the markets that I want to meet. So I would encourage people to really get immersed, and then you become a thought leader in that space. And there's really three things that you need to evidence. You need to evidence a certain degree of likability. You have to come across in a credible manner. You have to evidence a knowledge base of the topics that you're dealing with, and you can build that up just by reading, just intense reading, nights and weekends. And then third and most important is that you have to be memorable. And I know you've done a broadcast about that, and I feel this is really important to reiterate. As you meet people, you need to leave them with a lasting impression that this is somebody I want to work with.
And you just mentioned your brother Jim Gaffigan, or is that?
Oh, well, that's a distant cousin, but we're not going to digress into the nightclub comedian things. But yes, he's part of the Indiana Gaffigans, and I'm part of the Philadelphia Gaffigans.
Cool. And how much of your business is inbound versus outbound?
Well, define what you mean by inbound and outbound, so the leaders know that, or the listeners know that I'm answering the question properly.
Sure. Outbound is people who don't know you that you're approaching. Inbound is people who found out about you and contact you.
Over time, that balance starts to level out. Initially, it was almost all outbound, except save for the people that I knew in these given industries that had executive positions that I could reach out to, warm referrals. But I'm finding that people are reaching out to me on LinkedIn and, sustainability directors and such. So as you keep, immersing yourself in whatever venture you want to do, whatever industry you want to do, you need to attain that thought leadership position. And it comes with time, but it's really wonderful when you have people that are actively reaching out to you to network and to try to collaborate.
So what I found interesting with this is that you are working the topic, meaning the green energy side of it, as opposed to, hey, I can get you deals, which I think most salespeople would take that avenue. Was that a conscious decision?
It's kind of a strategic one. I mean, it's a very nuanced and very important question, Brian. But as you build up value for what you're doing, for example, I'll pick on an engagement that I'm currently working in Reston, company called InScope Innovation. They have a means to granularly monitor how energy is being used. This applies equally to gas or water, any flowing utility within a building. And then you can do energy conservation measures against that. And as I find prospects, I've been engaged with this company for about 3 months now, but as I find prospects for that, I can also apply that maybe to my Purify Fuel venture or to another venture that I have listed on my LinkedIn portfolio, Util Auditors. These are examples of 3 ventures that all align together, and one prospect may very well qualify for a second or third. And that's what really makes it exciting when you can help people on multiple levels. So you're really looking at them not on a tactical basis, but you're approaching prospects and clients on a very strategic basis of looking at the totality of how you can help drive down expenses for them, at least as pertains to what I'm doing with my green tech stuff.
And I mean, I think what's important here is that did you know much about green tech before you got into this?
I had a little background. There was a small stint I had with a company called FlexiWatt, and so that was kind of this nascent thought in the back of my mind when I became a free agent that I really enjoyed my time there. And this was dynamically dimming fluorescent lights in buildings. Now, this product was also subject to the cuss word called vaporware because it wasn't really yet market ready. I'll say that politely. We did everything we could on, we had some early adopters. Duke Energy did several projects. Pepco had done several projects with us, but it had a higher out-of-box failure rate than was acceptable. And so that kind of cautioned me on the vaporware aspect of things. And you never know what you have until you're inside the fence. But I enjoyed the heck out of that. And so that's why I kind of gravitated back to green tech, because I think moving forward, this is a real, well, I hate to say greenfield, but it's a real greenfield opportunity on multiple levels.
And is this something that you want to scale, or is it something that you like as a kind of a lifestyle business?
I would like to scale it. And as clients, I mean, there are a couple of clients that would like me to be retained on a more full-time basis. I need to figure out ways that I can kind of hire myself out. I mean, right now, the consultancy is relatively small, and I am the lead consultant in doing most of the heavy lifting. But, that's one of the challenges that I need to kind of figure out. Generally speaking, I can get a company that on a sales readiness level is maybe down on a 4 or 5, get them up towards like an 8 or 9, and they can either retain me long term or they can hire their own rep base when they have some revenue coming to do it. Either model is perfectly fine for me. And it just kind of allows me to keep honing these skills. And they're very transferable. So the things that you do, the methods you do to take something that is at a relatively low readiness level and make it at a high level of general availability, it really translates across companies and frankly across industries, because at the end of the day, sales is sales.
And is your focus on selling their product, or is your focus on building up a sales strategy and then populating it with capable salespeople?
Yeah, I'll say the answer to that is yes and yes. So it's all of the above. I mean, I have worked in that whole continuum. There are some engagements I've worked on where they don't have the collaterals laid out properly. And so while I'm not a marketing guy, I'm a sales guy, I can wear a marketing hat. And I do have access to people that can also help on that to get the collaterals at a point where it is, the whole complement of things. They're cut sheets, they're, white papers, positioning papers, PowerPoints. I know you'll tell me go on to Prezi, and I need to move to that too. But where they can basically be effective. And I'll also do direct marketing. I mean, I myself have offshore researchers that will pull together data at very inexpensive rates into target markets and be able to go out and do campaigns on their behalf. So I can wear any hat they need in getting revenue, from getting the company organized to actually going out and doing the Lord's work.
Cool. And talk to us about that, because I've been really diving into that, about outsourcing and breaking down my sales process into tiny little micro steps, and then outsourcing it when I can't automate it. But more and more, I just find that there's tools and capabilities and services that are on the web that you can just get a lot of the stuff done. But then there's the last mile needs to be done by hand. What are you using?
Absolutely. The last mile needs to be done by hand. I mean, I use Pipedrive. I use overseas resource to pull information together. I like the templates format in Pipedrive, where you can do little quick customized notes. So it is a customized note, but it saves time on that. I use Owler for research. It's kind of like a poor man's version of Hoover's. Gives you a lot of detail on clients that you're either looking at or getting competitive intel insights into other players in that space. I use a variety of trade organizations. There's hundreds of LinkedIn groups that you can go into. You generally look for ones that have, maybe 40, 50,000 members to show that they've kind of crossed that watershed, and you can start to engage in meaningful conversations to build up dialogue. A lot of what I do is really that last mile, and it's so vitally important that that's applied in a productive, concerted, customized manner.
And just let's touch on that consulting agreement, because when I've done consulting, I've done it very loose, no agreement, just an order, basically a one-page spreadsheet. Why did you decide to do a full agreement?
Well, because I think proper contractual hygiene is critical, for this relationship. I mean, in all ways, shape, and form, you are a representative of the company. I mean, generally speaking, I will tell my clients, you should issue me business cards with the title that we agree upon. You should issue me an email address. And so basically, I am acting as an outsourced, either VP of sales or sales director or whatever title we deem is appropriate on your behalf, and acting exactly as if I was a W-2 employee for you. And it's good for both of us because it basically allows you to build that credibility. I mean, how you're contractually aligned doesn't matter to an outside prospect versus what you know and how you convey it and how passionate you are about the offering. So having really strong contractual language is good for both parties. And
have you run into payment issues ever? Or?
Yeah, I mean, there's always things like that where where some of the startup companies are still kind of trying to move the balls around and such like that. But that's kind of part of your due diligence, and you are going to have some clients you work with that just really don't pan out, for whatever reason. I mean, we've talked about the vaporware issue, and sometimes there's financial instability, and you generally are not going to be awkwardly asking them, are you solvent? But you can determine that by just looking at the office and how they conduct themselves. And there's a lot of other measures that you can do, and you can certainly, if it's larger enough of a company, generally speaking, the bigger companies are not retaining services like me. So I don't envision that I would ever be in a Fortune 500, but I never would say never, because they may want to do some special engagement where I have expertise that fits a bill for them that they want to kind of trial out. But the smaller companies, you have to really be consciously vigilant and looking at everything you see there to determine their stability.
And who would not be a good fit for this type of approach from a career standpoint?
Well, I guess from a personal standpoint, the individual contributor, I'll talk about that role. They have to feel comfortable to be really outside the box. I mean, people that are broad thinkers that can, apply different and sometimes seemingly incongruent ways to move things forward. They're probably not going to think like that. They're best suited to stay as a conventional, single company, single product, bag carrying role. And I'm not maligning that, because there's people that enjoy the heck out of that, and they should continue to do it. But folks that like the challenge of being just buttressed by enormous inputs of different things, and you have to sort it out in your mind and prioritize it, those type of people that are creative thinkers that can think on their feet really quickly generally tend to like doing things like this. And what happens, it's like the gyroscopic effects of a bike. You get a certain speed and you take your hands off the handlebars, and you're flying along great because you've created this momentum. So that type of personality from an individual contributor is some of the personality traits. Now, from a company, companies that would look for things like that are ones that are privately lamenting that their offering has really kind of stalled, or they're not knowing how they want to kind of go to market. There's some great ideas that die 1,000 different deaths of how they don't get their offering presented in a suitable manner that outside reviewers can review and compellingly say, I'd like to try that. So those companies should absolutely reach out to folks like myself or other folks that are in this space and say, I'd like to chat with you about what we're trying to bring to market and see if this would be a good fit for us to help one another.
And who would be your ideal client? Is it a small green space startup? Is that the right thing?
Yeah, I mean, I like people that are beyond, certainly not vaporware and not brochureware, but, people that, we talk about this technology readiness level. It goes from 1 to 9. And I'd like things that are at like a TRL 8 or 9, where they've had the subsystems developed, it's been tested, it's been quality audited, it is either launched or ready to launch. And those type of offerings are the most appealing. Because frankly, if you're too early in a company, they're not going to be pleased to be spending money on me doing evangelizing for them, and I'm not going to be pleased that I can't help them out. So companies that are a little further along are generally good. If they have 8 or 10 clients and they're happy clients, that basically pre-qualifies them as being of interest to me, because I can help take them to the next level. If they have 8 or 10 and they want to get to 100, 200, we can work off of that beachhead of where they've had success.
Great. Hey, where do people learn more about you and what you're doing, John?
Well, certainly you could reach out to me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/John Gaffigan. You could certainly call me on my cell or text me at 703-283-6100, and I'd be happy to follow up any questions or comments people may have from your listenership.
Hey, John's a great guy, and I see a lot of people doing this today, not sticking with just one company. And there's nothing wrong with sticking with one company. I did it for quite a while. But there was always, you always had to be looking for the next thing out there. And today you could actually, time slice and work for different companies. I see people working at home. And part of my, start the meeting conversation class is really going to evolve into what I call sales development army. And the idea is for people who maybe want to work at home who can set up these meetings from home. People who have, good conversational skills, good social skills, they'll be able to work from home, part-time, full-time, whatever they want, and be able to have a career without it being committed to either a single company or a full-time job. Speaking of which, I really want to meet somebody in the audience who wants to get into business-to-business sales, maybe as a sales development rep, because I want to come up with this course, but I really want to talk to somebody to understand what would you like in it. And it's going to also have how do you get a job, because I'm a master at that. Yeah, I should have been a recruiter. I mean, I've had a lot of jobs. Let's face it, in sales, you're always kind of moving around. But hey, this is what I got out of the interview with John. One is find something you're either excited, enjoy, or passionate about. Everyone says that, but I take a different view of it, because I got to tell you, for the 25, 30 years I was in sales, some part of it was passionate, some part of it was exciting, and some part of it was enjoying. But probably like you, there was a lot of rejection. There was a lot of not being treated very well, because sales is that one profession where the better you do, the worse you get treated. You get paid well, but of course you get your territory sliced and your quota upped, and people, diminish your contribution because it can't be you. It's got to be luck. And that's part of the game. That's never going to change. I gave up expecting it to change. And that's kind of why I do my own thing. And that what I love about doing my own thing is that there's no cap. It's all up to me. No, good, bad, or indifferent. My point there is think of what you do as a means. It doesn't have to be the end, meaning that it's the means that gets you the end. Gets you the money, gets you the freedom, gets you the skills and the independence to do the other thing that you might be passionate about, whatever sport, family, charity, whatever it is. Because I had a VP of sales, and it's like he was wealthy. And I go, why are you still doing this? And he goes, well, I've got this charity that I'm just passionate about. And, when I can finance it, it just makes me feel so good. That was his thing. He really didn't like selling anymore. And he really wasn't that good at it. But he found, enjoyment in doing that. And that's what I mean by it can be a means to an end, whether it's, early retirement or, kind of the breaking up your life into different segments instead of waiting, the Warren Buffett thing about retirement. It's probably an inappropriate joke for a podcast, but anyways, you can think of sales as a means to an end to get you that excitement, to get you that energy, to get you that passion. The second thing is that being company dependent is okay. The problem is if you can only sell at that company. Now, I've seen a lot of people like this. They can sell one thing in one market space of one company, and when they move to another company, they just can't figure it out. They can't understand that it's different, that there's a different interest level, a different process, a different priority. And believe me, when I started my training company, I was shocked at how little I knew about all these other companies. And I've trained people who sell corporate jets, multi-year, $100 million buildings, as well as, I've even helped door-to-door people. I've helped car dealers, and it's so different. And I spent the first year, I was just getting headaches because I tried to make them sell the way I sold software in the enterprise. But it was different, and I learned pretty quickly, but it really comes down to certain things. It comes down to certain steps. Human beings are all the same, but how groups and people make decisions about different things, about where they are in life is different. So that really helped me grow as a salesperson. It really showed me how little I really knew. And when people say, oh, there's a refresher, you guys go, I love sales. And it's like, even if you've been doing it for 30 years, it's a constant skill. It's a practice. Like medicine, you got to think like a doctor, like a lawyer. What do they call it? A practice. It's not a destination. It's a practice. Much like a musician, you got to practice. Okay, number 3 is the things that really 3 things under number 3. One, he embraced technology. And I see a lot of, salespeople, once they get over, 30 or 40, they don't really embrace technology. They kind of like, oh, it worked for me. And my analogy is, I think sales leaders are a lot like, college music. Have you ever noticed when the music that you loved when you were in college, in your early 20s, even if you didn't go to college, that's the music that stays with you the rest of your life, whether it be the Beatles, the Beastie Boys, whatever music it is. You don't really change that genre or those bands when you get older. And I think sales leaders are the same way. Whatever worked when they were in their 20s and 30s when they had success, they think that works forever. It's the cold calling guys out there who just pick up the phone. And it's like, yeah, the phone's still super effective, but how you use it has changed dramatically. We now have voicemail. We now have caller ID. We now have a phone in our pocket all the time. And most people don't like talking on the phone. A lot of people I see a lot more texting than I do talking. Anyways, okay, so the technology and the knowledge, finding out, business acumen in the domain. Now, sticking with a company is one thing. Even sticking in an industry, which is not a bad strategy, but is that industry going to be around for the longevity of your career? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's the early stages. Maybe it's sunsetting. If it's sunsetting, it's going to be scary. And now the next one is coming up with a system. Why do you come up with a system? Because we're emotional, reactive creatures. If you don't have a system, you're basically going to be stimulus response instead of thinking. You have a system when you play any game. Sales is the same thing. You got to have a system. Hey, I really appreciate you listening to this episode. I want to give you an update on the course. Start the conversation, get the meeting. It's out of beta. It's in production. I'm having office hours on the first Friday and the second Friday of every month. Once you join the course, you'll get the email. I'll put all of that into the course so you see it and you know how to connect in. Office hours are basically, you can send me questions or ask them during office hours. And, I'll prioritize the questions based off of relevance and how well it was covered in the course. If you're in the course and you want more content about something, just let me know. The course is living, meaning it's not ever going to be finished. It's going to be evolved based off of you, people who want it, and the people who get this. The feedback I'm getting already is I'm seeing the difference. I'm getting meetings that I wouldn't have gotten before. So make sure you check it out. The link is in the show notes. It's in 3 places. It's in the show notes. It's on my LinkedIn profile. It's on YouTube as the main video when you go there. Or you can just Google, start the conversation, get the meeting, and the site is Thinkific. Think, IFIC. And you just Google it. It's there. And I also offered a 6-month payment plan. It's not you have to pay all 6. It's not just, pay for the first one. And I got all the goodies. I'm leaving. No, it's 6 payments. Also, I'm going to be starting up the President's Club, which is going to be a combination of the full Maverick Selling Method course that it's been online. I've kind of kept it private for quite a while. I'm going to open it up again, and it's going to have office hours. I'm not going to offer the one-on-one. It's just too time-consuming. I'll allow you to buy hours at a time if you want, but the course, I'm going to probably I'll only allow you to pay for it over 12 months because it's really a 12-month journey of really how does the complex sale work and how do I close it? Hey, I'm super excited about this. So if you're out there and you want to get into B2B sales, send me an email at brianGburns@me.com. I just want to interview you and understand what you would need and see if I can help you there. Because that I see is an enormous opportunity because I do believe B2C is going to get sketchy. It already is. But business-to-business sales is the future. Infinite demand, and people are just making tons of money. So if you're interested in that, get in touch. Thanks for listening.
I want to know the truth, because deep down in places that you don't talk about at team and management meetings, you want me on that call. You need me on that call. We use words like fleet view, volume control, total cost of ownership. We use these words as a backbone of a life spent negotiating something. You use them as a punchline. I have neither the time nor inclination to explain myself to people who rise and sleep under the very blanket of revenue that I provide and then question the manner in which I provide it. I would rather you just said thank you and went on your way. Otherwise, may I suggest you pick up a phone and make some sales calls. Either way, I don't give a damn what you think you're entitled to.
Did you expense the lap dances?
I did the job I was hired.
Did you expense the lap dances?
You're goddamn right I did!